The FBI doing damage control over the way it first characterized a harrowing terror attack on a synagogue in Texas. A British national storming into the place of worship, taking 4 hostages, while demanding the release of a prisoner known as Lady Al-Qaeda. The gunman killed after an 11-hour standoff. Thankfully, all the hostages were able to escape physically unharmed. But here's how the FBI initially described the motive.
We do believe from our engagement with this subject that he was singularly focused on one issue, and it was not specifically related to the Jewish community, but we're continuing to work to find motive, and we will continue on that path.
After backlash, the FBI doing a 180 and saying in a statement, this is a terrorism-related matter in which the Jewish community was targeted and is being investigated by the Joint Terrorism Task Force. President Biden also reacting and using the incident to push for stricter gun control.
This was an act of terror. This was an act of terror. And allegedly he purchased it on the street. Now, what that means, I don't know. But you can't stop something like this if someone is on the street buying something from somebody else on the street. Except that there's so many guns that have been sold of late. It's just ridiculous. And it's because of the failure us to focus as hard as we should and as consistent as we should on gun purchases, gun sales, ghost guns, and a whole range of things that I'm trying to do.
Greg, I want to go to you and have you listen first to Andy McCarthy, who described what the FBI might have been thinking.
For too many years, the Bureau has been hypersensitive to Islamist organizations and their demagoguery and the way they react. And I think they take them to be like the voice of Muslim Americans across the country, which they're not. And they try to, sort of couch their words in a way that's not offensive to those organizations, when I think they should just tell us what happened.
I mean, just state the obvious, perhaps.
Yeah, clearly everybody here is completely wrong. This was the work of an angry parent fresh from a school board meeting, radicalized by Tucker Carlson to join the Oath Keepers and head to a synagogue. I can't believe you people don't see through this. But Andy McCarthy, he's absolutely right. There's a hypersensitivity. The FBI is more concerned by the perceptions of them being seen as intolerant, especially now in the age of woke. That's more important than actually speaking the truth. And you're seeing this all throughout the White House and Joe Biden especially, is that they're under the thumb of Twitter. And that's kind of where they anticipate their reactions. Meanwhile, normal people who turn on the news, who aren't, who don't work in politics or media, they only see 2 variables. The 2 variables are synagogue, Islamic terrorist. There's no other context necessary for them. They don't need to see the big picture. You don't need the big picture here. You've got the two variables. But then what happens is they can make the conclusion that this is work of an Islamic terrorist in an anti-Semitic attack. But once you add the other variables, woke media, woke Twitter, woke politics, what you end up happening is, well, this appears unrelated to anti-Semitism or terror. It really is about getting guns off the street, and the real terrorist is perhaps the NRA. So this is what happens. The American public can see through that, and Joe can prattle on about gun control, but his party killed gun control. You cannot energize criminals while disarming the public, right? Between demonizing the police, defunding ideology, ideology, lawful gun owners are going to be buying more guns.
Jesse, one of the things about stricter gun control is, okay, fine, you want to have that discussion, but what about stricter border enforcement or Customs and Border Patrol protection or immigration? Because this terrorist, entered the United States on December 29th. And now you have UK officials interviewing 2 teens today, that perhaps some sort of connection. What was the intel chatter that was going on before this?
We're going to have to ask Biden that question when he holds his news conference on Wednesday. This guy wasn't on your radar, Mr. President. You gave him a visa 2 weeks ago to come into this country. What kind of visa was it? Did you vet him? Was he on a watch list? Usually the feds are all over these people. And then they do a raid immediately in England with associates or people affiliated with them. So Scotland Yard didn't know anything about this. MI6 had no clue about this guy. This guy buys a hot gun off the street 2 weeks after he gets here. Who was the guy he bought the gun from? They don't even know how he died, who shot him. There's a lot of suspicious things about this story and a lot of unanswered questions. And hopefully Joe has at least one of those answers in the next 48 hours, because he should be asked about this. But Dana, if there's someone for a national radical Muslim who comes into this country and holds Jewish people hostage at a synagogue and then demands the release of an al-Qaeda prisoner, the FBI comes out and says, we can't rule out Trump supporters. Think about that. You know, we don't know if his motive was white rage or the Russians. I mean, that's really what they did here, and that's how the FBI does it. That's by the book. Remember, Dana, the FBI has said publicly that the #1 domestic terror threat are white supremacists. So when there's something like this happen, they can't rule anything out. Everybody's a suspect, Dana. You can't actually get mad because, listen, we don't want to cause any more Islamophobia here because, again, this happened in Texas. God forbid there's a backlash. Vigilantes in that dirty southern state. We can't have that. We have to protect peaceful Muslims, not peaceful Trump supporters, but peaceful Muslims. Those are the people who we really, really have to protect. It's all backwards.
Harold, could you listen to two representatives of the Jewish community, their reaction to how it was first characterized?
Are you kidding me? The hostage taker did not go to a McDonald's. He didn't go to a shopping mall. He went to a synagogue.
A synagogue attacked a synagogue by someone who's trying to free a terrorist, for God's sake. And for the FBI to say, nah, this was not about the Jewish community. Hey, it was about the Jews, for God's sake.
Harold, your thoughts today.
Well, first off, happy King Day. Two, I don't necessarily see how, from the outset, it was not perceived as an attack on the Jewish people. I think about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago in Pittsburgh at Tree of Life, where the attack happened, the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in the United States. I even think about Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, where another act of hate was perpetrated. For me, the bigger issue is the one that Jesse raised. I don't know how he got into the country. He seemed to have been banned, this person, from a courthouse in his own hometown. That would seem to me to raise some flags or raise some fears. I don't blame it, though. I wouldn't go quite as far as Jesse in blaming this on Biden. I think our intelligence operations and apparatus have to understand what communication was not there. Where was there communication that was not there? I give the FBI a little credit this evening because they did clarify and correct their statement. But I would hope whatever processes they have, and we're not privy to. Remember, this thing I think was streaming live. And finally, I give that rabbi who is the real hero in all of this, how he was able to help those hostages escape and how he was able to distract this terrorist.
Well, one of the reasons he was able to do that, Kennedy, is because many of these synagogues have gone through training to make sure that they are prepared to deal with it. The other thing is, Harold mentioned it was being live streamed. It is curious, we haven't heard yet during this investigation what sort of phone the killer had. Well, I guess he didn't kill anyone, but the perpetrator. What kind of phone did he have? And are the tech companies cooperating to make sure that we can get the information?
I bet they are. They usually do. But, you know, you're absolutely right to question the FBI about this because they didn't just clarify their statement. They did a complete 180 here because they got it so wrong. The FBI has done more to tarnish the trust in law enforcement people in this country have for local and federal law enforcement than the progressive defund the police movement. And, you know, they've been pretty awful about these things. And for that meathead spokesperson to come out and say it had nothing to do with the fact that this was a synagogue, a Jewish house of worship, that's absolute baloney. And, you know, everyone should be outraged about this. You have to be straightforward with people. That's the only way we can make society safer is if you're honest with people instead of trying to shellac things. And it reminds me of how the FBI dropped the ball after interviewing Olympic gymnasts and putting that testimony in a file for 18 months. So the person who was essentially accused of some horrific sexual assault went out and assaulted more victims. So the FBI has egg all over its face, and it's not okay because they issued a massive clarification.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.